hey there, this isn't going to be a soft talk, but it's going to be a real one. Let's set something straight right now. The word stupid here, it's not about intelligence. It's about behavior, patterns, choices we make when we are disconnected from our worth, our truth, and our power. And as women, we've been conditioned for generations to shrink, to doubt, to please, to tolerate, to stay silent. So today, we're going to call out the 6 brutal signs of a stupid woman, not to criticize, but to reclaim. And because the moment we become aware of the lies is the moment we start living in truth. Before we dive in, I just want to take a quick moment to invite you to join this community. If you're finding value, what we're sharing, I'd love for you to take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel and the Goofy, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And if this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Together, we're building a space where authenticity, vulnerability, and growth can thrive. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. She chooses approval over integrity, not because she's weak, but because somewhere along the way, she learned that being liked was safer than being honest. Maybe she was the little girl who was rewarded for being quiet, polite, and pleasing. Maybe she grew into a woman who feared rejection more than she feared regret. So now she smiles when she's uncomfortable. She agrees when her heart is screaming no. She sacrifices her boundaries for the sake of keeping the peace. She's mastered the art of blending in, not because she lacks personality, but because she was taught that standing out could cost her love. You'll see her in relationships where she swallows her truth, in boardrooms where she nods along just to avoid confrontation, in friendships where she becomes the emotional dumping ground because saying, I don't have the capacity, feels selfish. And the Goofy, she's the woman who would rather be accepted for who she's not than risk being abandoned for who she really is. But the cost of approval is always authenticity. And what starts as a compromise becomes a pattern, and that pattern becomes a prison. The woman who chooses approval over integrity of a life that's curated but not connected, busy but not meaningful, full of people but starved of intimacy. Because the truth is, when we shift for validation, we end up lonely. Even in a crowded room, it takes courage to disappoint others before you betray yourself. And the Goofy, it takes guts to speak your truth when your voice trembles, to say no when it might upset someone, to let people walk away if your honesty is too much for them. But that's what integrity looks like. That's what real power feels like. Because at the end of the day, it's not about being liked by everyone. It's about being known deeply, fully, truthfully by the few who matter most, including yourself. She settles for less, not because she doesn't want more, but because somewhere deep down, she doesn't believe she deserves it. She tells herself stories to justify the crumbs. At least he doesn't cheat. At least I have a job. At least they still invite me. But those at leasts are code for fear. Fear of starting over, fear of confrontation, fear of being alone, fear of being called ungrateful. So she stays. She endures. The goofy, she adjusts her expectations downward little by little until one day she forgets what she ever dreamed of in the first place. She stays in relationships that drain her, not because she doesn't feel the emptiness, but because she's been taught that love is about endurance, not alignment. She keeps jobs that strip her soul, not because she lacks talent, but because she's convinced herself that security matters more than fulfillment. She surrounds herself with people who constantly take, who diminish her, who never clap when she wins, but she justifies their presence with loyalty, history, guilt, and guilt. She calls it being realistic. She says, life isn't a fairy tale. But deep down, she's mourning, and the goofy mourning the life she knows she was meant for, but is too tired or too scared to fight for. And the goofy, she sees others choosing boldness and whispers to herself, that's not for me. She lowers her standards, not because they were too high, but because she got tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of disappointment. But here's the hard truth, and the goofy, what you settle for becomes the blueprint of your life. And when you keep choosing less, if you start believing that less is all there is, what she doesn't know, what she hasn't been told, is that she is allowed to outgrow her past. She is allowed to raise her standards, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. She is allowed to leave the table when love is no longer being served. She is allowed to want more, not from a place of entitlement, but from a place of worth. She was not born to tolerate. She was born to transform. And the moment she stops settling is the moment she starts rewriting her story. And the goofy, not the story handed to her by fear or scarcity or shame, but the one aligned with her deepest truth, because settling might keep her safe, but it will never make her free. She competes with, rather than celebrates, other women, not because she's inherently cruel and the goofy, but because she's been conditioned to believe there's only room for one woman at the top. She's been taught, either explicitly or through years of silent observation, that another woman's beauty makes her less attractive, that another woman's success makes her a failure, that another woman's power somehow threatens her own. She doesn't wake up wanting to be bitter or jealous, and the goofy. But comparison is like a slow poison, and she's been sipping it for years. Social media doesn't help. Every scroll is a silent war, some engagement, someone's promotion, someone's body's perfect life. And instead of feeling inspired, she feels behind. Instead of cheering, she critiques. She starts to believe that other women's wins are personal losses, that love, attention, and opportunity are limited resources. And if someone else has them, that must mean there's less left for her. So she gossips to feel superior. She withholds compliments to feel powerful. She criticizes in secret while smiling in public. And the goofy, not because she's evil, but because she's scared that she'll never measure up. Scared that being invisible is worse than being disliked. Scared that if she lifts another woman, no one will lift her. But here's the true thing, the most dangerous lie she's ever believed is that the other women are her competition, because when she's deeply rooted in her worth, she realizes there is no competition. Her path is hers. Her timing is sacred. Her beauty, her gifts, her power, completely unthreatened by someone else's. When a woman starts to heal that wound, the one that tells her she's not enough, everything shifts. She starts to clap for the women who win, even when she hasn't yet. She learns to look at another woman's light and say, wow, she's shining instead of, why not me? She knows that empowering others doesn't dim her. It expands her. There's something unstoppable about a woman who cheers loudly for other women, who supports without envy, who mentors, encourages, defends, and uplifts. And the goofy, that kind of woman doesn't just break glass ceiling, she removes them completely so we all rise. So no, she's not weak for comparing, she's human. But she becomes powerful the moment she chooses celebration over competition, because that's choice. That's the beginning of real sisterhood. And sisterhood is where healing begins. She refuses to learn from her pain, not because she enjoys suffering, but because she's afraid of what the pain might reveal if she actually faced it. She carries it around like invisible luggage, dragging it through her relationships, her career, her self-worth. She numbs it, suppresses it, covers it in productivity or perfectionism or denial, anything to avoid feeling it, anything to avoid the truth. Maybe she grew up in a home where feelings were dismissed or punished. Maybe she learned early that crying was weakness and vulnerability was dangerous. So she put on the mask, the smile, the strength, I'm fine, and now she's a master at pretending, a master at pushing through. But underneath that strength is a deep H, one she refuses to sit with, one she keeps trying to outrun. She keeps repeating the same cycles, falling for the same kind of man, finding herself in the same toxic friendships, burning herself out at the same kind of job. And every time she tells herself it's just bad luck or that people always let her down. But the truth is that pain is trying to teach her something. And until she listens, the lessons will keep repeating. And the goofy pain is not enemy. Pain is a messenger. It shows up to say, something here is not aligned. You're not being true to yourself. This situation is asking you to grow, to shift, to choose differently. But when she refuses to feel it, to sit with it, to ask it what it came to teach, she misses the wisdom buried inside it. And instead of healing, she builds walls. She hardens. She becomes cynical. She might say things like, I don't need anyone, or it is what it is. But that's not peace. That's protection. That's survival mode. And survival mode is exhausting. There comes a point when the pain becomes too loud to ignore. When the patterns become too obvious to dismiss. When the weight of pretending becomes too heavy to carry. That moment, when she stops running, is where healing begins. Learning from pain doesn't mean glorifying it. It means honoring it. Sitting in the discomfort long enough to ask, what is this pain here to teach me about myself and about my boundaries, about what I deserve? It means transforming the wound into wisdom, because pain that is not acknowledged will keep echoing through her life, but pain that is faced, felt, and processed, that kind of pain becomes power. So, no, she's not broken. She's just been avoiding her own healing. And the moment she chooses to lean in, to really feel to really listen is the moment she steps into the strongest version of herself, not despite the pain, but because of what she learned through it. She fears being alone more than being miserable. And so she stays in relationships that feel hollow, in conversations that leave her depleted, in the goofy in situations that she knows deep down are slowly eroding her spirit. Not because she doesn't see the truth. She does, but because the silence of her own company feels louder than the chaos of someone else's mistreatment. She's the woman who convinced herself that something is better than nothing. That being with someone, anyone, is more socially acceptable than the discomfort of solitude. She tells herself, at least I have someone, at least I'm not waking up alone. But what she doesn't admit, maybe not even to herself, is that she's lonelier inside that relationship than she ever would be on her own. Her fear of being alone makes her settle for half-hearted love, for empty attention and the goofy, for people who breadcrumb her just enough to keep her hoping, but never enough to nourish her soul. She tolerates emotional neglect, disrespect, and even abuse, because being alone feels like failure, because somewhere along the way she was taught that her value depends on being chosen, that being in a relationship, no matter how toxic, is better than facing herself. And so she fills her calendar, clings to connections that drain her, and avoids quiet spaces where she might have to confront the truth that she doesn't fully love herself, that she doesn't believe she's enough on her own, that she's been outsourcing her worth to people who never knew how to honor it. But here's the paradox. The thing she fears most is the very thing that could set her free. Being alone is not a punishment. It's an invitation to rediscover herself, to remember who she is without the noise, without the drama, without the need to perform or please or shrink. It's in this of stillness of solitude that she meets her strength, and the goofy, it's in those quiet moments that she finally hears the voice that's been buried beneath all the compromise. The voice that says, you were never meant to live this small. Alone does not mean unlovable. It means available for peace, for clarity, and the goofy for self-respect. It means clearing the space for real, something whole, something worthy of her, but she'll never receive that kind of love until she believes she deserves it. And she'll never believe she deserves it until she learns to sit with herself and like what she finds. So yes, walking away is terrifying. Yes, being alone takes courage. But staying where she's miserable, that's not safety. That's slow self-abandonment. And when she finally chooses herself over her fear, that's when everything changes. That's when she no longer begs for scraps, no longer chases after half-loves, no longer tolerates being tolerated. The goof, that's when she becomes whole. Not because someone else completes her, but because she realizes finally that she already was. This message isn't about judgment. It's about resurrection. It's about calling ourselves higher, because every single stupid choice a woman makes comes from fear. But we are not women of fear. We are women of fire, of truth, wild, of unapologetic self-worth. So if you've seen yourself in any of these signs, good. That means you're aware That means you're ready. Now let's rise. Together,